Hey guys, welcome to the Cognizance Composition, where ancient wisdom and modern psychology unite. Let's dive deep with us into the realms of the mind, faith, and emotional resilience. Together, we'll light the way to self discovery, stitching our lives with hope, healing, and harmony. Let's embark on this journey to unlock understanding and transcendence. And today, we have an amazing guest with us from the sales and marketing industry for healthcare and professional speaking. So, he has 32 years of personal development experience. Been married 24 years. We got 13 years in the senior housing industry, and he has a lot of great advice. And I would say, just someone to really look up to, in a sense, on achievement. With season. So, yes, and we're gonna get into it. So today, we're digging into some personal growth and how we can frame our mindsets around building in relationships and what it really requires from us to dig deep with our faith, so we don't really have too much mixture or we get too far away from uh, you know our faith when it comes to our relationships. So to start this off, I'll go ahead and ask, is there anything you wanted to add to the beginning of this, Sir Scott?
Yeah. Hey guys, you know what? I'm excited to be here with you. Travis Charles, thank you for having me. What an honor it is to just share. There's the talks about iron sharpening iron, and I love moments, or in this case, maybe we get an hour or so together to share some ideas and talk about some experiences. I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for having me on your show, man. I'm honored.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, I'm
Yeah,
I'm I'm just stoked that you're here, Travis.
exactly. Yeah, no, thank you for joining us. I love how you mentioned that because we were literally just talking about that last night. He was actually
Yes.
wearing the shirt yesterday too.
Yeah. I figured
Sweet.
I'd do a little button up today. Be a little more professional.
Uh,
Oh man.
I have the professional white T-shirt on. Yeah.
Yes, bro. Hey, it is, man. You dress to impress over there, bro.
the
Don't see it
professional white
matches my
t-shirt.
blanket.
I think I'm gonna, Travis. I think I'm gonna steal that one, the professional white t-shirt. I like that.
That is nice. That is really good.
Perfect. Yes.
Oh man. So
And
man, we'll go ahead and kick this off. So Sir Scott,
Yeah.
uh, how has your faith influenced your approach to personal challenges and your relationship with others?
Wow. Right out of the gate here, he sent me a fastball.
like fast.
Oh gosh. I'll tell you. I think when you asked that, my mind went back in time a little bit to when I was a newer Christian.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because as we start our walk, right, in our faith, it's interesting that God puts people in our path that sometimes we don't even know that we need.
Yeah. Yeah.
But He puts people there, and I think back to a time, my wife and I were pre-kids, so we'd only been married a few years, but we went to a couple, some Bible studies, some accountability groups, small groups,
Hmm.
men and women and stuff. And I think back to those times and how those relationships, right? Because I was obviously a younger man, then, and you've got the whole world ahead of you, and you're taking on this new responsibility. You're going to be a husband now,
Hmm. Yeah.
and at some point, right, we're going to be raising kids, bringing kids into the world. It is interesting to me of how mentors play a substantial role in that. And um, I've been a believer in mentors, but I think what the difference in this one is, Charles, when I say this, is that God brought several mentors into my life that were very seasoned veteran Christians.
Hmm.
And it was almost as if there were some seeds being planted in my life, to of this path that we're walking down. And so I think it has a profound effect.
Mm.
You know, I had friends and whatnot outside of church. You know, I think we all have that.
Hmm.
But strategically placed, in my case, men who were, gosh, I think at that point, you know, they were probably as old as I am today.
Yeah.
You know, but I was just a kid, and I think the role that they played was so significant. And you know, it's interesting. I remember bits and pieces of what they told me, but I don't remember everything. But the things that they did tell me were so profound,
Hmm.
and I think they helped. You know, they guide our way, they guide our path through, you know, through this thing called life. So that's my 5 minute answer to your fastball.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like it. Man, one thing I think of. Do you have anything you want to say, Travis?
Nope.
Okay.
Uh,
So to me, I was thinking is like, so would you say it might have been difficult, or was it difficult for you to kind of cultivate patience when you were first starting, like into that area? Um, and I speak just because like I know I struggle sometimes with wanting to like or having to wait on God, or even like allowing things to just happen. Like you know what I mean? Like I struggle because you know I don't really have many mentors right now, but at the same, I mean I want some, but at the same time it's like uh, you know I find myself struggling to wait sometimes to you know because I know I'm gonna have to play a role in what God's doing, or what my faith is gonna have to require, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
really like that patience area.
So I'm gonna answer that with a very very profound story.
Hmm.
And again, this dates back to about the same time, before kids. I was working in a recycling plant, and the the opportunity came for me to change jobs to a job that was much 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 closer to home. Like literally, I could ride my bike there.
Nice.
And yeah, on the outside looked great. On the outside
Yeah.
looked great. 4 10-hour days. It was just a slight less amount of money, but I thought, oh my gosh, this is, you know, it's so
Hmm.
close to home. And you know, is interesting. I was newer in my walk, and I didn't consult God. I didn't pray about it.
Mm.
I just did it. I thought, why wouldn't I do this? This is perfect, right? I
Yeah.
mean, this,
Yeah.
look on the outside and it checks all the boxes. And I thought, this is great. Here's what happened. I went to that job, started working, and it only took about 6 months, maybe five. And I started to hate that job.
Mm.
And if for anybody who's listening, if you've ever had to go to a place of employment that you hated, it um, it affects your entire life.
Man.
It affects everything: your health, your happiness, your sleep, um, everything. And somewhere about a year, um, I started praying. I was like, Lord, I messed up. I am so sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, I should have never done this. I should have never, ever done this. I am so sorry. And you know what's interesting? I worked there about another 9 or 10 months before he relieved me from that
Mm.
position. So all in total, it was over a year, um, that I hated going to work. Like I despised it. The people there, they would
Mm.
go, they just, I didn't match with anybody. I didn't.
Yeah.
There was no, you know, synchronicity. I mean, it was just everything. I didn't think like they did.
Mm.
Uh, and the lesson I learned in that, Charles, was I was like, okay, you know, switching jobs for most men, it's a pretty big decision.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, especially when you've got a wife, you've got kids, you've got a house payment, you've got these things. I mean, that's a pretty big decision. And I made an oath and I made a promise. I said, I will never do this again without serious prayer, right?
Yes.
That, back to answering your question, that experience taught me that if I don't wait on God, it can end up pretty bad.
Mm,
You
yeah.
know, when I try to take things into my own hands and what I think is best, what I see on the outside, and I think, oh, this makes all the sense in the world. Not always.
Yeah.
You know, there's things going on that God has going on behind the scene and whatnot.
Hmm.
And so after that, I learned patience.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. You know what I mean?
You
Like
know,
having to deal with stuff like that. You know, it's
absolutely, absolutely.
difficult.
It was. I mean, it was it was an ugly situation. You know, because every day I was there, I wasn't appreciated. I was just barely tolerated.
Mm,
Um, and so God let me go through that to teach me, look, it is best, you know, if you wait on me and have patience. And I
mm,
learned from that. It doesn't always mean that it's still really easy. I mean, his timing never seems to be our timing, you know.
yeah.
But there are, or there can be. I'm not going to say there are. I'm going to say
Mm,
there can be steep consequences if we don't practice patience and
yes.
wait for that clarity, right?
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
yes. I agree wholeheartedly, man, because it's difficult.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Chaz?
yeah.
It's almost like we want to like just like push what we want. It's almost like, man, I really want this and I want this now because how I see it in the moment. It's like, man, it's good. I want to go after it, but you don't see the long term version of it,
Yeah.
which is which is part of what which is
Yeah.
basically that story. You see
Yeah.
it, it looks good, it's close, but you don't know how much you actually hate it. Like, yeah, because that takes a toll on actually your mental health. You feel more mentally exhausted than physically exhausted at that
Mm,
point, you know?
Mm. Oh
yeah.
my gosh, you are so correct. It wasn't a real laborious job. I wasn't physically. Oh my gosh, Travis, boy, you hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah. That's good.
As I revisit this in my mind, it was emotionally exhausting. Um,
Mm,
and it got to the end. It got to where I would almost be throwing up before work on Monday morning because I knew that
Ooh.
there was another week that I had to go there and be someplace that I didn't want to be and wasn't appreciated and you know we didn't hold the same values and all those kinds of things. So you're right. It emotionally it was very tough.
yeah. And I think like the emotional signs are actually kind of subtle sometimes. Like if you don't have awareness or acknowledgement in that, you know, because you can be like, because I know some people, like I used to be very performance based, and I actually didn't realize how much emotionally irregulated I was, or even dysfunctional, you know. And then it's like finally you realize, like when you're in the storm freaking out, like you know what I mean, like trying to swim, you're about to drown, but then you get like there's a like you know there's a little like you know raft right there next to you or something, you know, and the little life rafts, you know. But it's like you're out there like freaking out, drowning, and it's like, oh man, how'd I get here? You know, like
Yeah.
you drifted away from the center, you know, the peace.
Mm, and like the worst part about that is like, yeah, like you're like, how did I get here? But then you start looking back, it's like, wait a minute, this caused this to happen, which did this, and I did this, and I did that, and I led myself here to this
Uh-huh.
place, which
Yeah.
is basically what it's like living outside of God, you know?
It, and I kind of have like a small little funny story. Not to get us too far off topic, but it relates perfectly to this. So my dad, he has kind of a testimony where he's doing a roof, like a bry roof. It's a flat roof, so he has to like heat it up and bry everything. Well, it's raining on him, and he's trying to bry this roof in. And he got himself into a big old mess, and he's thinking that he's gonna have to flood these people's like it's like gonna flood these people's house, and he didn't have insurance or nothing, so he's like take it all, God, like, like getting mad, like just freaking out on the roof when it's raining and storming around him, right? And it actually nothing happened. There was no damage to the house or anything. There was no damage, nothing. He was able to get it done and whatnot, and he didn't even think about that until I asked him that, like 20 something years later.
Wow.
You know, and it's like he finally was like, oh man, God was like taking care of me the whole time while I'm sitting there freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, I really think a lot of people could relate to that though, would be like whenever you don't even realize you're in the storm and you don't know what your way back to the center, because the
Right.
center's always calm. The center's our peace. That's our source. You know, it's God. It's Jesus in our hearts. You know, God places eternity in our hearts. So if our minds aren't on eternity things, or we're not looking for that kind of
Yeah.
understanding, You know, like we aren't looking for God's understanding. We're looking for our understanding and what we think's right. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, the what comes to my mind and when you say that is, and this was a hard one for me to accept, um, but God, He's really not interested in our comfort.
Yes.
He's interested in our obedience.
Yes. Man, that's so good. Yes. We talked about that too.
He's, I mean, I heard a, I heard a pastor. This has been a few years ago, but from the South. But anyway, I was watching him on TV, YouTube. I'm sorry, YouTube video, but I was watching through my TV. But anyway, he had talked about. He said, you know, God is really, he's a loving God and a caring God, but he your tears don't always change his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, how whoa.
Yeah.
Stop
Yeah.
about that for a second. I'm like, wait, what? My tears don't really change his mind. He's interested in our obedience. He's
Yeah.
interested in sticking with him and following him,
Yes.
even when we have tears, even when we're smiling, even when we're mad, we're,
Yes.
we're being patient. You know, oh my gosh, it was a moment for me,
Mm-hmm.
a full moment. You know, that I thought, wow, how profound. You know,
Yes. It's meant to move us. You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
man, and that's something I've come to have revelation on too, is like, you know, I feel like it's a sense of self deliverance or healing, like with God, right? Like He's purging us of stuff, you know, because even when we cry, you know, like there's a little bit of cortisol that's released, which is, you know, stress and stuff.
yeah,
And, you know, I think God's like purging stuff out of our heart, you know, and we really have to just be willing to give it to Him and be broken because we all don't want to experience pain or even being hurt. But, you know, and I think that's why faith is such a big thing when it comes to us trying to grow. Because if we're not willing to change and experience some of the hurt that's
yeah,
required in that, then
yeah,
we won't ever grow to what God wants us to do, or even to the capacity that He calls us to do. You know, He's always going to give us bigger, better things, but that might be look different than what we think it might look like.
right,
So, man, that's so good.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
let's see here. Let's go to this one. So what's speaking of this? So what strategies do you use to overcome the pain or even setbacks that you have in your life? And like, how would you say that you could stay resilient in both your growth areas of your life, like development and things that you're trying to overcome and do, and also your interactions with the people in your life, your loved ones, and you know your ability to stay connected with those you know around you?
Yeah. That's great. The I think the I think some of the pieces that I have learned of this, Charles, along the way is that we can't we can't wait for tomorrow to be happy.
Mm,
We can't wait for Friday to be happy. We can't wait till July 4th gets here to be happy. We can't wait for our vacation to be happy.
yes,
Um, we we need to choose to be happy now, today.
yes,
And that doesn't mean that everything is peachy keen
hmm,
and everything is great. And it doesn't mean we're not frustrated. It doesn't mean we're not patiently waiting and getting a little come on, or,
yeah,
give me the answer. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means that while we were waiting, you and I can choose to be happy.
hmm,
Mhm.
Because if it's been my experience that if we don't choose to be happy today, our whole happiness is going to be predicated on something else that may or may not happen.
hmm,
Mhm.
And life's too short, man. Life,
hmm,
I mean, we've heard that saying a million times, but you know, when you look at how quickly life goes by, I decided oh shoot, probably 20 years ago, right?
Mhm.
That I'm going to be happy regardless. Um, my wife and I are arguing. You know what? I can still be happy. That doesn't mean I need to take out my aggression or my frustration, my irritability on everybody else. I can still be happy. I can still treat other people with decency, respect, and I can still smile at them, and I can do all of these things. So while we're waiting on clarity, while we're praying, and God doesn't feel like God's answering our prayers, I we still have to go on and live life. We still
Mhm.
have to go do the things that we know we're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And I decided that a long time ago that I was just I was going to be happy,
Mhm.
um, no matter what, because I think in my early 20s, mid 20s, there was a lot of dysfunction, a lot of things in my life. I was a very broken man, very broken young man, and I used to remember say, "I can't wait till Friday." Oh man, yeah, we're gonna have a 3 day weekend. I can't wait till Friday. Yeah, I'm gonna start my weekend, early, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm just wishing my life away,
Mm.
instead of embracing these kinds of moments, like right here,
Yeah.
with you guys, right?
Okay.
Instead of, I get to um, experience enjoyable things, and and those aren't chores; those are blessings. And so, I think really as we go through life, Scripture has helped me understand something that, man, I'm 55 years old right now, and
Mhm.
Scripture has helped me to understand that um, I've been through a lot. I've overcame a lot. I've gone through a lot of crap.
Yes.
And guess what? There's going to be a lot more.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just the way life works.
Mhm.
I think if you're a participant in life, you're you're gonna come up against struggles and
Mhm.
challenges, and you're gonna have to deal with things that are not enjoyable. They're not fun. You're gonna have to. There's times where you're gonna have to really, really trust that God's got your back. Instead of just saying it, you're going to have to really, really trust that He's got your back
Yes.
through the storm that you're going through.
Mm.
And I think that's maybe a long answer to your question, but that, for me, that has been one of the most significant pieces. I think
Yeah.
to get through some of those really stressful times is just still choosing joy, still choosing um, to be happy. You
Yes. Man, I love how you
Yeah.
say that. Yeah, I really love that answer. Did you want to
Mm-hmm.
say something, Travis?
I honestly, I love what you were saying in the beginning. Like, oh man, if I wait till I'm married to be happy, I'm not gonna find happiness in that. If I wait till this project's done to be happy, I'm not gonna be happy from that. That's just me trying to like delay something for later
Yeah,
on. For whatever reason, I feel like I have to do something in order for me to be happy, or I feel like I have to do this or that for me to not act depressed or act like this or act like that. Because I know like there's a few people who are like, man, once I get my wife and once I have kids, then I will be happy. Once I get my new
Mm.
phone or whatever, or yeah, then I will be happy or whatever. Just as an example.
It,
But when you go like in this mentality, it gets dangerous because then it's like you're delaying something you could have right now.
yeah, yeah.
You're
There's the peace. It's. I think it's healthy, and I think it's good to be excited about something that's coming, right?
mhm. Yes.
yes.
Maybe that's a project, right? Maybe that's a purchase of a house or a wedding. You met, for the single people, you met someone. You're excited about going on a date with them, or I think those things are good. I really do. I think those things
Yeah.
are healthy. I think it's the way God
Mhm.
wired us. I think it's the way He wants us to be. But I think we need to do a door check when we
Mhm.
say, I'll just be happy when I find the right girl.
Mhm.
I'll finally feel complete when I find that right guy. And um, no,
No,
that's not how it's supposed to be. Um, Find the happiness now. find the
Mhm.
joy
Yes.
today.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
And I feel like this all stems back to how you have a relationship with yourself. Because there's a lot, this is something I struggled with a while ago. Self-hatred. I hated myself. Why? Because I wasn't good enough to myself, you know? I set standards, and when you can't achieve your own standards that you set, which is literal perfection, which is why
Mhm.
people struggle with self-hatred, I believe. It's like, okay, oh
Mm.
man, I'm not good enough. I'm not this and I'm not that. But if you can just like learn to, I just say like, okay, I can't be perfect, but if I can't love myself, how can I love others? If I can't love myself, how can I be happy? You know?
Mm.
Right. Amen to that.
Man. And I get, man, I'm getting so much from this. Like, man. So, golly. So, I think it's just struggling with being able to accept ourselves, honestly. And I feel like that's like the route to take because, you know, it's the false expectations. It's really what I'm getting from what we're saying right here. It's the false expectations of not being able to accept who we are because we don't know who we are. And we
Mm,
think that we're always going to need something else to make ourself valuable or worthy or because I think we all have just not we all but you know as we're struggling to not be able to wait, it's because we can't accept our current environment or ourselves or the past or even our emotions.
yeah.
And it's like being able to sit with that and then figure out where to go, like course correct. You know what I mean? Like literally like finding yourself when you're lost. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because like you said, if you can't love yourself, you can't love anyone else.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you find the way to love yourself?
Yeah. I, um, Travis, I'm gonna modify what you said for a second, just slightly. When you said, if we don't love ourselves, how can we love someone else?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't disagree with that. But if we don't love ourselves, how can we properly love
Yes.
someone else?
Mm.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Because I think we all would say that, well, what do you mean love myself? I love my wife. Don't talk to me about this stuff. I don't
Mm-hmm.
do this, but
Mm.
yet at the same time, well, wait a minute, hold on. How do you know how to properly, the right way, to love your spouse if we don't love ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just a
Right.
slight different differentiation of the word.
Yeah.
Little thought provoking there, and I say that from a guy who probably in his 20s, I didn't love myself.
Mm.
In fact, I felt like, well, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole with this, but there were I had so many things that I had to work on and correct and overcome and deal with, that it loving myself, like, was the furthest thing from from my agenda. I, I wanted to be able to balance my paycheck, and not find a girl who was toxic. That you know. So, but there's different kinds of love, and how do we properly love someone the way that they need to be loved, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In the way that's best suited for them.
Yeah,
Because man, like I think it's really difficult whenever because I mean expectations can get off, right? Like when we think certain things, or if we can't actually do that in a certain way or the best way we need to, and that's why we got to have those boundaries.
yeah,
That's why we have to have some type of um, freedom to operate in. I would say because you can't have love or freedom without being inside of a boundary. You know what I mean? Because if you step outside of that boundary, like so, the eye of the storm is peace. If you step outside of that peace, you're gonna have chaos and all kinds of stuff that's going on, and like I think it's our expectations of like, oh, what's out there that I might be able to get that could make me happy because you know what I mean? Like you don't even realize
Mm.
that you're in peace. And
yeah,
that's happiness, like your ability to be at peace through whatever you're going through, like you're saying, and choosing that,
yeah.
choosing that happiness. So And I would say that actually leads us to our next question.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, did you have something,
real
Travis?
quick, I do want to dive a little bit deeper into this because I do love how
Okay.
you put properly love somebody, because I know there are people who get into like a relationship who put in and put in and put in, but it's almost like they're getting nothing out of it, because as if they're like not properly loving somebody, if that makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like Charlie, like I know you struggled with relationships in the past. I'm not trying to attack you here, but I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you can like relate where it's like, man, I'm trying to put in all this stuff. Can you guys hear my chihuahua freaking out?
No,
Okay,
No.
perfect.
we hear no chihuahuas.
Okay, perfect. Because like, but I'm sure you can relate to where it's like, man, I'm putting in all this effort, I'm putting this in, I'm doing this for them, I'm doing that, but it's almost like I'm getting nothing back from them. So it's like, eh, I'm trying to figure out how to word this properly, but it's like, yeah, I guess just like trying to love properly, because when you love properly, it's like you can put in and expect something out. But I'm trying to be careful with my words here because yeah, I don't want to like start ranting on something here like in the middle of this, but
No, you're good, bro.
I think you guys think I'm trying. Well, I think you guys get what I'm trying to say here, because when you can love properly, you can put in and, and expect like, I guess, their love in a sense, because people in a failing relationship where it's like almost like, man, almost like Peter in the Bible. He tries so hard to do all of this. He tries so hard to do all these things for Jesus and to protect him, but also in his act of trying to protect Jesus, like for example, when they were taking him, Peter cut
Mm-hmm.
off a guy's ear, taking it to the very extreme,
Mm-hmm.
going the extra mile. Where it's like, no, don't do that. Jesus heals his ear, puts his ear back on him, to protect him from going to jail.
Mm.
So I feel like it's just like when you take it to that certain extreme, it
And yeah, we can
yeah.
we can go that route, man, because um, you know, and you know, and that's the sense of vulnerability that's required to be able to grow. Because like if you can't own where you're at or things that you're doing, or if you can't take responsibility for your relationships, like because so like that's how you're supposed to do it as a leader. You know, like the leader is responsible for pretty much everything. You know what I mean, in a sense. But at that same time, at what point does that responsibility shift? And I think that boundary lies in the fact of what I can and can't control. Right. So at what point does the other person take control and responsibility of their actions, behaviors, or how they show up? So anger specifically, you know, it's always controllable. And it says more about what's going on inside of you than it does the other person.
Yes.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
the pain, the hurt, the injustice, the validation, or the attention, affection, or whatever the case may be, that it could be either handled or mishandled correctly or properly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know for me, that's something I've had to literally learn that the hard way. Like
Yeah.
legit, literally, that was my little figurative, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
God, like take it all. You know, so
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you can't love properly, you feel like you're putting in all this work, but you don't see all the wrongdoing that you're doing. You don't
mhm.
see all the wrong that's also being put in, like all your mistakes when you're trying so hard. But once all the mistakes start coming up via communication or some kind of disagreement or argument,
Yeah.
that's when you can start seeing like, man, wait, I did this when I was in reality trying to do this.
Well,
Yeah.
so,
It,
and I
it,
would say this actually, real quick to that. You got to be careful in that sense because um, you can get hard on yourself and you shouldn't really be too hard on yourself. Go with the same exact thing.
um, is it just me or is he
But,
liking for you too?
oh, it's just a little bit. It's just a little bit. It's
Um,
all good. Are you okay over there, Crap?
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
you like completely cut out, so your one's like, sorry, sorry again.
okay, it's all good. Oh yeah, all right. So I would say you got to be careful with that kind of mentality because you can't be too hard on yourself because then you can actually really lean into a fear, guilt, and shame based mentality,
Right.
and that would go negative extremely quick. I mean, where's the grace, the mercy, the kindness? Like, like as long as someone's willing to own their part of it, right? I would say that you need to at least be comforting, encouraging, and even uplifting and gentle and kind in the area of growth for the other person. Like, and I know, okay, so as you're going through something, I would say it's very difficult to be that person if you're going through something as well. You know, so I know I've struggled in that area to try to do that as I was also struggling.
Yeah.
But that's where our source comes God. Our source is God. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna, I feel like those situations are meant to pull us closer to God.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's always easy, it's hard for us to see the picture
yes.
when we're the one in the frame.
Yeah.
And there, um, it makes it difficult because we don't always see. I think we have good intentions, but we don't always see that the harm that we're doing, or
Yeah.
the things that we do that probably cause more problems than good, right?
Yeah.
I think back to Travis, what you were saying about someone who just dives in, into a relationship, just head over heels, and they're just, I mean, they give and they give and they do and they do. And I have a couple friends like that it's almost like they can't just be in a relationship.
Mm.
They just like dive in and like, and the problem in that is sometimes is they lose themselves.
Mm.
And the other problem is people who do that often, not always, but often subconsciously expect the other person to do the same.
Yeah.
And I mean, is that really fair? Now all of a sudden you're putting these expectations on this person that really is created from yourself. It's your own belief, your own actions. And how is that fair? How is that going to make this work?
Yes.
Um,
Exactly.
we do have to be aware of what we're bringing to the table, and is it healthy? Is it helpful? Is it contributing? Without losing ourselves.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. And it makes me think of the other side of the coin too. Like whenever people can't be alone either. And then they pull their energy from the other person, but then they're not realizing that they're projecting onto that other person, like you're saying about how like they're expecting them to put in more effort just because they are. Like,
Yeah.
man, oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
So man, I would say that actually leads us to our next question here, because we're in relationships, right? And I think that's how we relate to God is through relationship. Like, and this is something that's probably extremely simple, but it hit me kind of hard. And it's why we have to listen more than we speak. And I love that was your response in the questionnaire. And it was like, if I don't know someone, how can I communicate to them? Like, how can I communicate in a way that they will understand anything I'm saying if I don't know anything about them? And I feel like people have that kind of disconnect with God. You know nothing about God, but yet like you're gonna not you, but like atheists or people who like are struggling, or people who might doubt their faith or think they have the perfect doctrine, or just whatever the case may be. But it's like, how well do you like know God? Or are you listening to him? Are you communicating to him? Like, you know what I mean? And like you said, when we don't do that, we go astray.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And man, and that's why I say this is life or death for me. Like it is everything about me. My whole life goes into this because it's my life. It's my relationships. It's literally my connection with God. And if we're separate from God, all there is death.
Right.
And that means we really have to figure out boundaries. We really have to figure out so for me personally, what I'm going through right now is how to reframe my speech, the way I talk. And just for one just little small example, I'm trying to understand triggers. So like our emotions, the way they communicate, and how it reflects our pain, but it also shows us the healing that's needed. So it's like, how do we know that if we don't seek it out? You know what I mean? Like, or if we go into therapy, but we do need someone to help us. So it's like mentors or something, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, like, instead of, because I know I've done this, like, you've made me angry. Well, no, they didn't make me angry. I made myself angry because it's something I was feeling, right? Like, Instead of that, I feel distant and unheard. Can we try to connect?
Ah, I love that.
Man, like you see, like, and then it's my tone too. Like,
Yes.
like, and then I've also done this one. You never listen to me. You know what I mean? It's like I'm literally black and white over exaggerating something because of
Right.
something I'm not aware of within myself.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Man. And so that leads us to this question.
Yeah.
How do you maintain healthy boundaries in your relationships while also pursuing that personal growth?
I like this question.
Yes.
The reason is because Charles, I am a huge proponent of boundaries. Because from where I came from, I would have I I would have never become the person I am today had I not set boundaries.
Mm.
And it's interesting. I'm writing actually a blog right now, and just this morning, I was talking about this very thing that about boundaries, in something that I was able to do. And I'm going back, oh my gosh, 25 ish, 20 years ago. Is that when I started realizing that some, not all, some, I'll use that word very loosely, but there were people that are around that were very toxic.
Mm.
And if that's all you've ever been around, that's all you know. You don't really know. What do you mean toxic? Because if you're not around
Mm.
anything else to compare it to,
Yep.
right? And I realized that if I was ever going to grow, if I was ever going to develop myself, if I was ever going to get past what I would call fifth grade, and I don't mean
Yes.
that physically, but
Uh-huh.
if I was going to challenge myself in this personal development space, and I was really going to grow myself, I had to set some boundaries in place around certain people.
Mm.
Uh, because it's interesting when you're at this level and you're around other people that are this level.
Mm-hmm.
And if you and by the way, I don't use this in a way to say I'm better than anybody or over anybody,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't happy here. I,
Yes.
I wanted to grow with myself. I wanted to learn
Mm-hmm.
higher levels of awareness. I wanted to learn more about God. I wanted to learn more about psychology. I wanted to learn more about people, why they do what they do. Why do they
Yes.
like that? I wanted to do this. Well, when you do that, you're going to have people that are going to try and reach up and grab you and go, hey, no, 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 better back down here.
Mm-hmm.
And
Man.
I had to set, I had to set some boundaries with people so I could grow. That doesn't mean I didn't care about them. That doesn't mean I I removed them from my life entirely.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some people that I just had to go. I'm not going to hang around you every week. I can't
Mm.
because I feel exhausted. I feel heavy after I've been around you. Now I didn't tell them that,
Man.
but that was my own like realization of, okay, some of these people they don't get access to me like they used to because I can't become the person I feel like God's calling me to be if I keep hanging around them, right?
Mm.
So boundaries for me, after I grasped this, now I will admit in the beginning it was a hard concept to understand.
Mm.
But once I understood it and once I implemented it and I realized that it's really not as hard as people have it out to be,
Mm-hmm.
um, holy cow, my life exploded into positive change.
Mm.
It really did. Because the fear that people have, and I'm just going to go ahead and talk to the pink elephant in the room right now.
Yes.
The fear that people have around boundaries is they think, well, if I set a boundary with that person over there, they're not going to like me anymore.
Mm.
Or, yeah, that's at Christmas dinner. That's going to upset my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Or, um, yeah, I'm not going to come to Christmas dinner because so and so and so and so are there, and I can't be around that. And we have this fear that life is somehow going to collapse at Christmas dinner because we're not there,
Hmm.
you know.
Mhm.
And the fact is we're implementing a boundary to protect ourselves, to protect us and the things we find out, right? So and once you realize that you can do that and that you're doing it for yourself and you're doing it for the right reason, it's honestly it's not that difficult. It will feel a little weird at first, um, but after you do it, you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this sooner? You know. So
Yes.
Uh,
Sorry.
uh,
I was listening
uh,
the whole time my kid came in and everything. He's just
no,
got here.
that's cool.
Um,
Charlie, if you need to take a minute, feel free.
no,
But
no.
yeah,
So
okay,
no,
but
man. So like, all right. I
uh,
really love where we're at.
yeah, so do I.
So like, man. So
Well,
I want to go ahead and just ask if you'll come back again, so we'll have more time to really dig into boundaries, because uh, man, I really think you're right. You know, people do struggle with this, and they're so scared and fearful of that. Like, because so for me exactly, and I speak, you know, because bro, I can relate. And I was laughing when you first started talking because me and Travis, we were as we were reading the everything, and we were talking and whatnot last time. It's like. This is you in the future, like talking about me, like because like I've literally like I have been going through all of this stuff, like you know, and it's so like surreal almost in a sense, you know, like
hmm
to see that, or even like you know what God's developing and see how it's working, and to hear the stories you're communicating as well, and you know, but it really is the boundaries, um and man, like in my life, like I you were saying that, and it's just, you know, I have struggled like that, you know, and so I don't know if you might have ever felt like this, but I felt like I had to learn to help show to be different, like how to be different. One second, sorry, pause. Gotta get the dog out.
Yep.
okay. You know what? You know, I'm just going to continue this. Dude, I love your story because your story comes from a perspective of a changed heart, but still being in the same environment.
Hmm.
I went through something very similar, but except my heart wasn't changed, it was my actions. I was in a toxic friend group, and what I noticed is I was being more disrespectful to the people I loved around me. And when I
Mm,
noticed that, I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, no, something needs to change. And I'm like, okay, no, it's the people I'm around. I knew this because growing up, my mother always told me, you are who you hang out with. And yes, this comes from the Bible, and that's something I don't think I knew at the time. So I'm like, okay, no, I need to get out of this friend group. And what I did was I literally prayed, God, help me to get out of this friend group. And literally, like, not long after I know that, some guy came in and was like, hey, dude, I noticed you're the only one that's different here. Would you like to come join me, like, on, like, some other place? Granted, these guys weren't Christians, but these guys weren't toxic. So
yeah.
at the time, that was a win.
Hmm.
But yeah. And,
And
yeah. Mm,
so man, like God really turned my life around. Like I mean,
yeah.
just to put it simply, and man, because I feel exactly what you're saying. It's like you finally realize that your life was, you know, like to me, I felt like I was less than everybody
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, like I was talking about with Travis. It's like, you know, I was like King Solomon when it was like when he you know, lost his ways, so to
yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
You know, body count and stuff like that. And
Yep.
then it's like realizing that you had been a toxic person, and now it's like I feel like I need to correct things that's happened in my life or things that I've done. You
Yeah.
know, and be that person now that God's going to use to not only fix my situation but also help restore things that I have corrupted.
Right.
You know, so it's like I went through and demolished all these things. You know, and like, you know, really just kind of tore it to pieces, not even realizing what I was doing, just running away from things, you know, not realizing you know, the emotions and all of the problems that kind of come with that. And finally now starting to learn how to be, you know, decently healthy and like have like all this uh passion to learn things, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, and I tell Travis this, I barely graduated high school. You know what I mean? Like I'm just a truck driver now, you know, but you know, it's like what God is doing, what he's capable of is just, you know, once we finally understand that and then that we pull our identity from him,
Yeah.
it's limitless.
Yeah.
And fear creates limits, you know, and like I think it keeps us trapped outside of the boundaries where we need to be.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
man. So yeah, I mean, just that, I mean, that's just simply put, because I got so much more I want to say and get into, man, because it's, you know, I really think what you were saying is just so powerful. You know, like being able to know how to operate and set those boundaries and have courage. Um,
Well, yeah. And I think, let me do just a small little addition to that,
okay.
Charles, if I may. The people that I set boundaries with,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they ever knew that I set a boundary with them.
Mm.
And here's what I mean by that. Why is it a requirement for me to tell them?
Mm.
I mean, if somebody has a really, really good explanation to that, I'll listen to it. But why? Why is it? Why I'm not obligated to?
Mm-hmm.
Now, to be fair, if one of those persons had come up to me months or a year later
Mm-hmm.
and said, "Hey, I notice, we don't really hang out anymore," or, "Hey, I notice, gosh, the old you is, we're not having fun anymore. We're not drinking. We're not, raising hell." I mean, whatever it was. Um, I think at that point you'd probably, it's okay to say something along the lines of, I decided to make some changes in my life. I wasn't happy with where I was going. You don't need to actually tell them, "Well, I set
Mm-hmm.
a boundary with you, and by God, you're on the other side now." You know, we
I'm
don't
drawing a line.
we don't have to do that. We're not required to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just said, you know what, here's what I will tolerate, and here's what I no longer will tolerate.
Mm.
And I think when we get really, really clear on what that means for each one of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it becomes very easy to set a boundary. But
Mm.
it's the fuzzy part, because people don't often sit down and write out, "You know what? I'm not going to tolerate being talked to like that anymore."
Mm-hmm.
Or, "You know what? I'm not going to tolerate that cute little name that Uncle Harry has. That's not okay anymore."
Mm.
Um, you know, I mean, it's those kinds of things that when you get really, really clear on what you will and will not accept, not based on anyone else's opinion, anyone else's happiness, anyone else's who cares.
Mm-hmm.
when, when you and I get really clear on what is acceptable for me and what's acceptable for you, um, it's easy to go, "You know what, that person, I'm not going to spend time like that with them anymore, because here's what they do,
Mm-hmm.
and they think that's okay, and you know what, that's not okay." Um,
Mm.
and that I think that is a piece to the puzzle that, for anybody who's listening to this, have you ever really sat down and written out a list, not a mental list, a
Mm-hmm.
written list of what you will and will not accept, what you will and will not tolerate, right? There is just magic in clarity. When God brings clarity to our life, there's magic in it. And
Yes.
there's something with that element of clarity. And oftentimes sitting down and getting real with yourself and having that heart to heart, not just with yourself, but with Christ, and saying, really, what will I accept? You
Yeah.
know, even shoot, even in a spouse, what will I accept?
Mm.
What's not acceptable, right?
Mhm.
And it was back to your question for a moment, but when you do that and you put some boundaries in place that keep people around you, they no longer keep you from growing, it's easy or easier
Mhm.
to start growing, to start maturing, to start dealing with some of your past, to start looking at new ways of seeing things, to start socializing and interacting and people that'll help lift you up and pull you up instead of pushing you down or
Yeah.
pulling you back down where you used to be, you know. So there's
Mhm.
a lot of different elements to boundaries that, and again, I'm just such a strong proponent for them because I've used them in my own life, and it's
Mhm.
just such a huge difference, you know.
Yeah. Man, I'm getting so much from that because, uh, you know, as I'm growing myself, realizing how to do these things, you know, because like like not even knowing emotional intelligence, then it's like trying to learn how to emotionally regulate, then manage, and then also still set boundaries. So it's like all of these things in one, right? Like to
Yeah,
be able to like finally become aware of something, and that's why we're all children of God,
yeah,
right? Like even as grown adults, we're all little children when it comes to God, especially when we start getting into our limbic brain, the emotional responses to things. And it's like,
mm,
man, and I say the boundaries because it's like God showed me the reparenting
mm,
factor of the emotional intelligence, the trauma, the all of the stuff that goes into it. And to me, it's like he's put me in such a situation to where like it's almost like things are so drastic and dire that he has to be my full source.
mm,
But also, if he is my full source and I submit and I give him my will and I can set up his boundaries, right?
mhm,
It will also be able to carry other people. And what I mean by that, not that I can save anybody, not that I can help anybody, but that it will show them in a loving way through the ability to speak, through the ability to communicate with love, and the ability to communicate, um, to really make a connection with the people that really matter,
yeah,
the people that are needed to move forward. And I think with what I'm trying to communicate here is that there's a difference between friends in your life and family,
mm,
because in the body of Christ we're all family.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And I understand some people don't, like, they have different families, and some, like, there's people that are really toxic, because I've been one of that person at a time. I actually have created boundaries with people and they don't even know, like you're saying. It's like, um you know family members even. And it's, uh I think that can be hard for some people. You know what I mean? And
right,
it's when you have to do that and you have to make that decision to carry out that justice of, you know, I'm going to learn how to love myself. I'm going to learn how to take better care of myself. You know, and demonstrating that. Because me and Travis we were talking last night. And it was about, you got monkey see, monkey do, but you also got monkey hear, monkey speak, monkey hear. You know what I mean? Monkey hear, monkey speak. You know what I mean? You're gonna speak what you hear. And
yeah,
and I think it's because like if you're just thinking about like a dominion, right? A kingdom, an area, like a circle, right? Like even just like with walls and boundaries, right? Of this the centerpiece, and outside of that chaos. Well, as you establish that, you're creating a better environment.
right,
And that's where things can really grow. So
yeah,
I think if you can actually keep people within that boundary, instead of pushing them outside of that boundary,
yeah,
you know what I mean, and
yeah,
and really trying to create an environment that things can grow. Planting better seed,
mm,
tilling the soil, like taking care of
mm,
your boundary. Taking care of your area, like, so it's your household. You know what I mean? Like
right,
probably, and I don't know, like you can stop me if I'm saying this anything like, but like, it's like how you raise your family, the pride you take in how you nurture and care for the people that are supposed to be underneath your care and your authority and your dominion. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's just so profound and something I'd really want to get into on another video.
Yeah.
Like cultivating boundaries and an environment for that.
Yeah.
What I really like about that is like, it's like when you control your boundary, you're controlling your environment. Because when you don't have your boundaries and you're like, and you're a changed person in a bad environment, it's like if you continuously stay in that bad environment, you will eventually go back to your old ways because that's what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to change fully, you have to change your environment too, which is what establishing boundaries will do. It will
Sure.
help to
Well,
change your environment, right?
yeah. So, and y'all can correct me here if I'm wrong. I'll play. Maybe I might be saying this wrong, but devil's advocate or whatever, like the going against the grain in a sense. So I think though it's like this, right? So, and it's the perfect example of Jesus hung around with sinners, but he did not partake in that sin.
Yep.
He molded the people around him to become more light than darkness.
Yeah.
So how can we do that? Because he used communication. He used his words. He used his ability to speak in love and truth and ask questions that would ultimately make the people that needed to have boundaries established, make them leave on their own. You know what I mean? Like he asked the Pharisees, whenever he's specifically healing a man, a lame man, and I know we're kind of getting to the point to wrapping up, but he said, what's easier, to say you are forgiven or to say get up and walk?
Mm.
And they're like, you can't forgive, like, you know what I mean? Like only the Son of Man forgives, or God forgives. It's like, I mean, he was showing that, like, I mean, it's the Holy Spirit. It's once you bring the light into your atmosphere and you project light. You know what I mean? Like even John, we said this in our episode last night, but John, whenever he was in Revelations and he was brought up into the third heaven and he was looking at everything around him in heaven, like everything was made of like gold or pearl or like something else, but it was see-through. It was clear. Because God is the source. Jesus is the source, is pure light.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So every knee will bow, every tongue will confess, like the whole planet. You know what I mean? So it's like that's dominion. That's the boundary. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna do the whole planet. So, but how can we be a representative of that? How can we shine light to help people? I mean, I know we cannot save people and we cannot correct everybody and we can't fix them. But like, to what extent can we sacrifice in order to show those that we actually truly care about love? In order to maybe give them a helping hand and show them a different way, especially because I know for me, I've been the one to cause hurt. So I also want to be, in a sense, a way to reestablishing. So it's like Paul was killing Christians.
Yeah.
Then he turns around and starts saving Christians and converting Christians and being like literally a patriarch for the New Testament.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I feel like, especially us as men, we need to do that. We have to be able to establish that, and that should be our goal, to be Christ-like.
Yeah.
In establishing boundaries. So.
And real quick, just one thing I want to that I just like think about that's important about is Jesus didn't tolerate what the Pharisees said. He corrected them. When the Pharisees were like, "Oh, you can't heal," but then he heals. He was bringing correction. You know? He didn't tolerate to their traditions. He didn't tolerate to, the traditions are their limited thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
And not to keep rambling more, but so what that makes me think of is whenever he's talking to them and he's talking to them about how they're trying to condemn him and it's all about tithe and stuff and they're like, we give this and mint and all these other different kind of things, and he's like, but you don't care about the people that you're doing anything about. If you would focus on that rather than the latter, God requires mercy more than sacrifice. He doesn't want just everything that you're willing to offer him. He wants your obedience and relationship and your love and your connection and your ability to love others. Because, love God and then love other people. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he wants our heart.
Yes.
And the Pharisees, they had the works, which marginal at best.
Yeah.
But it certainly they didn't, their hearts were hardened.
Yeah.
Uh, and he wants our heart, because if he's got our heart, he can lead us, he can guide us, he can use us,
Yeah.
uh, over and over again, especially to reach people. Absolutely.
So I would say as far as wrapping up goes,
Yeah.
sorry, I gotta get off. But so as far as wrapping up goes, the ending question I could say, and I'll give you a chance to say anything as well. But I would say the ending question I have for people would be, what would really happen and change? Because not only if you have a Christ-like mindset, right? Like, what if we had a Christ-like mindset? But what would change also if we had a fully devoted heart to God? You know what I mean? Like that full submission, surrender, obedience. Willing to lay our lives down, like we're supposed to do. So it's like not only what we think about, but then what we're willing to do.
Yeah, boy, that's heavy.
Yes, sir.
What comes to my mind is, what was there was a lot of things through scripture. There was a lot of things that Christ did. Um, a lot of things, many things. But there's one thing he did constantly, over and over and over and over again. It's the constant theme that we see in scripture. And to me, it speaks the example he led by. Yes, he did. He healed all of these things. He saved. He did so many things, but he constantly led by example. And when Charles, when you talk about a Christ-like heart, I can't help but think of, am I leading by example?
Yes.
That common theme, even when I'm having a bad day, when
Yeah.
I only got 2 hours of sleep,
Yes.
am I? What is that? Am I still leading by example? Doesn't mean I have to be on my A game, but am I leading by example? I think that's my answer to
Yeah.
your last question. So
Heck yeah. And all right, so sorry, I don't usually do this. But man, last thing to add to that. I said it was the last question, right? But just this is kind of like a statement, a little bit of a little mini story.
yeah,
So total nerd moment, right? Kind of leading on a positive note. So I'm watching this show. I watch shows over and over again. I don't try to like constantly watch new things. Like I find more in seeing things over and over again,
yeah,
repetition. So it's like reading the Bible a billion times,
yeah.
But so I watch anime, and I actually get really deep things out of anime. So just stick with me here.
That's all right.
So it's called My Hero Academia, and it's about this kid who, in a world of where like 80% of people will get powers, and 20% don't. He's one of the 20%. And the number one biggest hero, whatever, like most powerful being, right? Like most powerful thing out of all the heroes. He ends up giving that kid his power. And it's because of his heart.
Yeah.
And it's a process of him growing and developing it, right? And becoming it. And the power is actually too strong for him. And he ends up breaking himself. So like anytime he tries to use it and he can't control it, he has to break his bones, break his arms, break anything else that happens. And there's a part in the season 1 finale, right, where he's like they're training, right, in the school, in the high school like area, and the villains come, like there's bad guys that come, and that big guy, anyway, he has a time limit on his power now. He can only operate within a certain amount of time. Well, he's at his limits, and he's showing by example that you have to go above and beyond through your limits and be like he's like literally fighting this thing that's taken all of his power, because he's like exceeding the time limit that he has to be able to do it. And it's like, they call it plus for ultra. It's kind of funny and stuff or whatever, and whatnot. But still, it's just that it's that fact that like when you see someone operating in their full potential, and you see someone that you look up to, like if we're looking to Jesus and God and we go and connect him on that kind of intimacy level, to know how big he is, like to know what he's capable of doing, and to see what he can do. And it's so easy for him. Like there is no limits for him.
Yeah.
But the fact that like you're watching someone and you're looking up to like your mentor in a sense, or the person that like, so you have a craft and they're struggling, but they're making it look easy.
Right.
You know, they're fighting and they're like literally just like it's almost extremely emotional because it's the fact that like you see someone giving it their all and they're going above and beyond and being the example in order to set the tone for everyone else.
Yeah.
Because he says he's always smiling because he has to be that symbol of peace and hope. And that's what Jesus. World and spirit. So that's just something I felt like was something kind of powerful. It made me think of at the end when you said that, and you know, so sorry.
Cool.
Anyway, so man, I'm super excited that you came on. I think it's amazing what not only you do, but what we're gonna be able to do and how we can touch people with this and to share your wisdom and you know what you have for some people, because I mean we can break strongholds. I mean, we can really help people out, you know? So.
Amen. Yeah, no, I agree with you. There's, you know, sometimes people just don't, they don't know that they can break those strongholds.
Yes.
They almost fall, I'm not going to say victim, but they fall into a category of saying, well, this is just the deck of cards that life has dealt me. And I don't buy into that for a second.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
you know. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, I guess you have anything else, Travis, or and as far as wrapping up, anybody got anything else?
I was just saying, like the closing question from this message I'm getting is like, are you leading by example? Like just me, like asking the audience, are you leading by example? And I feel like that's just like one thing somebody can really get out of this, you know?
Yeah, we're, you know, you've heard, well, maybe you haven't. I don't want to assume. But I mean, there's this little bit of a cliche, but going around in the workplace and in the culture is that, well, everybody's a leader. And then, you know, you get somebody goes, I'm not a leader. And I said, oh, really? Are you married? Well, yeah. You're leading your wife at maybe not every minute, but at some moments you're leading your wife. Oh, well, that's different. No. At some point, we are all leaders. That doesn't mean that, you know, you're a leader 24/7. That's not what I'm implying. But to somebody, you're a leader, right? There's probably somebody who's watching this or going to watch this, and maybe they have a dream or a vision to start a podcast. And so Travis, Charles, they're looking at you going, wow, those guys did that. Those guys, they've got it figured out. He's got a cool microphone. He's got it.
Mama, somebody.
I got to figure this out, right? So you're a leader to them, and you don't even know it.
Yep. And my son, you know what I mean? Like our children, you know. Man, I just got this when you were speaking though, and oh man, like the next episode can be something around like laziness, but then the ability to like be that defense for the wall, like the boundaries, like to be able to hold up the boundaries with love, but also as like living the example and everything. Like man, so I think that's the route we can go for next time. So if anyone's listening, or if when they see this, you know, like, hey, stay tuned for that. You know, be waiting for it, and we'll put that in there.
That sounds great. Fantastic, Charles. I look forward to it. You bet.
Alrighty. So
real quick, Scott, is there anywhere where anybody can like find you at on social media at all?
There you go.
If they're interesting in looking more into you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Really, there's two predominantly places on social media you can find me. You find me on Facebook. I've got a personal page, but then I have a professional page. And I'm just going to let everybody know, if you send me a friend request on my personal page and I've never heard of you, I'm probably not going to accept it. And it's a boundary. I mean, because I've had some people who have tried to send me a friend request, and some weird stuff happened. I'm like, okay, hold on, time out, right? So
Right.
follow my professional page. That's Scott Stewart, author, encourager, overcomer, coach. You can find me on Facebook there. And the other one is if you're on LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit, giving a lot of information, a lot of value on some of the stuff that I speak on. So those are the two biggest platforms. I have an Instagram account, but I usually try to keep it personal with stuff, and I don't do a lot of teaching stuff on that. But
So,
find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. You bet.
okay, so shortly after the stream, we will find this professional Facebook page and put that link in the description.
Yes.
So,
And
yes.
I take responsibility for that. I should have had that already in there. It's kind of my bad. I almost forgot, man, you know.
Now we're good, man. We're good.
So
It's
so
been
here we
fun,
go.
guys.
Yes, sir. So outro, guys. As we part ways, let's remember you have the strength to face any challenge, embrace your storms, grow from them, and remember, in the journey of self-discovery and healing, you're not walking alone. Until we meet again, keep growing, keep believing. Talk compound.
Amen.
Yes, sir.